Bonjour les amis, welcome to France and welcome to the beautiful Touraine region. This is France with Véro, enjoying another adventure off the beaten path in the beautiful Loire Valley. Today I am taking you to a very small village in the middle of the countryside between the cities of Tours and Loche. The village name is Chédigny, Chédigny. We are here at the lavoir, the wash houses, you can tell. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this village as we make our way through the streets. It's a glorious morning in August. And even if I have passed on the way fields that are fighting the terrible drought France is experiencing this year, here in Chédigny, the flowers are in bloom. And this is what this village is famous for. So let's go on the street and I'll show you. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonne visite. I came here in the morning to make sure that it wouldn't be too crowded, because this is a popular destination for those who know about it. This village, population, I would say fewer than 600 people, is well known, has been well known in recent years for being an incredible garden. The entire village is a garden, if you will. Locals will plant beautiful flowers, many roses, because there is a popular rose festival here happening in May every year. So everything has been landscaped. The entire village turned into a garden, and a little bit more than that as well. In France, we have a quality label known as the Jardin Remarkable, Remarkable Gardens of France. It is handled by a branch of the Ministry of Culture in France. I have taken you to a few of these gardens already, including one in Tours, where I live in the Loire Valley. And Chédigny is exceptional because the entire village a few years ago was awarded the coveted title of Jardin Remarkable. And everywhere you go in the small streets, you will see pride of ownership, beautiful facades. Everything is impeccably maintained. There are also artist communities. And so we can picture that years and years ago, probably before the 1970s, Chédigny was just like many villages in France. People were leaving. And then they figured out a way of bringing folks back here by creating an artist community, and later by turning this village into a beautiful place, encouraging people to stroll, flâner. We can use that word, flâneur, flâner, in other outside cities as well. And this is what people do here in Chédigny when they come. You just stroll, it's very peaceful. The only cars you will see in the town, in the village, are locals typically. There are parking lots outside, so there are no cars, there's no traffic here. Now of course this is August, mid-August, and so the roses, even though some are still in bloom, have faded by now. But on each plant, each of these plants, there is a name tag. So we are dealing with very knowledgeable folks here. Here are some roses actually that have survived. So this is the perfect destination for half a day or a day if you want to relax, step away from cities, step away from the chateaus the Loire Valley is so famous for, and enjoy this lovely village. This is a gîte where you can stay. It's part of the Gîtes de France network, as you can see. bicycles are a big deal around here. We're not too far away from the pathways, miles and miles of pathways following the Loire, east and west, known as la Loire à vélo. And many French and European tourists enjoy this activity in the summer here in the Touraine. Like I was saying, you have artist communities, and so it's not unusual to see signs featuring local artists. Now this is a village, and on each French village there is a small square where community life tends to happen. And if there is a square, there is une mairie, a city hall, une école, a school, la poste, the post office, and Chédigny is no exception. Welcoming bench here in the shade of the street. So as we go up on the little square, it's getting hot. It's almost midday. On the right-hand side is the post office. On the left, the city hall, and behind it, the school. Chestnut trees, les marronniers. Look at this glycine wisteria blooming for the second time. It's been so hot this year. Bonjour.
Bonjour, pardon.
And sounds of French life, a conversation among locals inside the post office. And if there is a village, there is typically a church as well. And here is the local church. I stepped inside earlier. More places to rest along the way. More flowers. Local kitty. Minou, ça va? Ça va le petit chat? Tu es gentil? Tu es gentil? Bonjour. Oh, bonjour Minou. It's a young one. Local kitty. In the back there are some hortensia, hydrangeas. And right by the church, there are probably some old graves here, buried literally among the flowers. This village has been here since ancient times. There's been activity here for a really long time, definitely in the Middle Ages. So I'm sure there are many interesting stories to discover and tell about Chédigny. Maybe I'll have to come back for that. During World War II, the village was very close to the separation between free and occupied France, the démarcation, la ligne de démarcation, the demarcation line. So Chédigny was in what was called the free zone. The free zone was managed by the Pétain government, the Vichy government, while the occupied zone was managed by the Germans, at least until 1942. After that, all bets were off. And so like other places here, like Chenonceau, for example, the domain, the Château de Chenonceau, everything very close to the occupied zone. Here's a statue probably by a local artist. There is a closerie. La Closerie du Tilleul is a restaurant, a local restaurant, inside what is known as the Jardin du Curé, the priest's garden. And if you want to see what a priest would have enjoyed as far as a garden goes in the 19th century, you can go in here through the old greenhouse, and you can visit the garden for the cost of €3. Here is the entrance of the pretty church. I won't go in, you know I don't live stream inside churches. Crimson Glory, look at this. Some of the roses are left here in the shade. And like I was saying, if you want to visit the priest garden, you can go through this greenhouse, and for €3 you get to visit the gardens, very, very neatly organized. There's a potager and there are some plantings. And then in the back here is the terrace of the restaurant where I will probably be enjoying lunch. Now this tree is a linden tree, and it has a very interesting story. It's ancient. It was planted to celebrate the birth of Napoleon I. The child, who was known as the King of Rome, became known as l'Aiglon, the eaglet. He never succeeded his father after Napoleon's defeat. But they did plant this tree to celebrate his birth. And so to put things in perspective, this tree was planted on March 24th, 1811. So for those of you wondering why there was a Napoleon I and then later a Napoleon III, but no Napoleon II, the Aiglon, it's a famous play as well, the Aiglon was actually supposed to become Napoleon II, but he died pretty young and never got to rule. Here's a peek at the priest's gardens. You can see this lovely walk with, you have pears and apples, of course flowers, and the potager on the right hand side behind these bushes, all in the shade of the trees. It's quite lovely. You can hear the chicken. So definitely some things to do here in Chédigny. And this is just a small part of the streets. There are more streets to explore. I'm sure it's very pretty year-round, at least during the growing season, because all these flowers and plants probably change along the way. And this interesting stone that looks like a bench is in fact, they tell you here, une pierre d'attente des morts, because back in the Middle Ages, they explained to you that after taking a long trip to bury someone, sometimes they didn't know exactly at what time the body would arrive or at what time the service would arrive for the blessing, and so they would typically put the body right here on the stone until time was right and until they could go inside the church. And this one, made of limestone, probably dates back to the 13th century. This was a free translation, a very free translation of that sign. So if you ever find yourself in the Touraine region, and if you want to step away from the Loire River, if you want to step away from the chateaus, take a little break from the chateaus, then why don't you come here to Chédigny, lovely village. And I'm sure you'll enjoy discovering it. Like I was saying, many more streets to discover. Could go in either direction. The occasional car. I think I'll go back in this direction and I'll wrap up. Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this video, look up for more tours, virtual tours I've been leading in Paris and all around La Belle France, all around France for the last 2 years. They are all on the France with Véro YouTube channel. And don't hesitate to share the channel with friends. Help spread the word if you can. But for now, I'm going to keep walking in Chédigny. And I will be seeing you very, very soon, I'm sure. À bientôt, les amis.